Consider a crisis in Venezuela. A mob has gathered outside the American embassy and is threatening to storm the barriers. The security team has integrated a cloud-based system into its workflow. It summarizes camera feeds, it flags possible weapons, it identifies crowd movements. Some people in the crowd may be American citizens. Some may be dual citizens. Then, at the decisive moment, the system stalls, waiting for legality review. The commander still has legal authority, the threat is still real, but the tool the team has come to rely on refuses to function because Anthropic's objection to mass surveillance has been embedded into the workflow. Or imagine a Ukrainian army command outpost. An incoming projectile is heading toward the base. The air defense system uses AI to classify threats and recommend engagement. A split-second decision is necessary, but the system cannot determine whether the object is manned or unmanned, so it refuses to complete the recommendation. The battery hesitates. The projectile strikes unopposed. In both cases, the issue is not whether surveillance or autonomous weapons raise serious moral and legal concerns. Of course they do. The issue is whether those concerns should be resolved by democratic institutions, military law, elected officials, courts, and commanders, or whether they should be resolved by giving a private company a hidden veto inside military software. Private AI companies should be able to refuse to work with the military. That is their right. What they should not do is accept military contracts while retaining the power to define, either in contract or in code, which lawful military actions may proceed. Anthropic stipulations are weak. The central issue in the Department of War Anthropic fight rests on two restrictions: mass surveillance and fully autonomous weaponry. At first glance, both restrictions seem uncontroversial. Nobody wants mass surveillance. Nobody wants unaccountable killer robots. But on closer inspection, these categories are so vague as to be nearly meaningless. Start with mass surveillance. There are already laws limiting the military's ability to conduct domestic surveillance against American citizens. The U.S. military does not have general police authority inside the United States. Its domestic role is constrained by law, historical tradition, and the constitutional separation between civilian law enforcement and military power. Anthropic claims concern about mass surveillance in the United States. But what about American citizens abroad? What about dual citizens in a crowd outside an embassy? What about foreign nationals? Are they covered by Anthropic's moral framework? If so, how? If not, why not? Some of these questions are already addressed by American law. Others are governed by legal frameworks that continue to evolve through Congress, the courts, military lawyers, and executive practice. They are serious questions, but they are political and legal questions. Under the Anthropic framework, they will be answered by Anthropic leadership. Then there is the word surveillance itself. What counts? Collecting large amounts of information about American citizens without active consent? That sounds less like a typical military operation and more like big tech's profit model. The lady doth protest too much. The same problem applies to fully autonomous weapons. The phrase sounds clean until one tries to define it. Is a bullet not autonomous after the trigger is pulled? Is a landmine not autonomous after it is set? What about a missile? What about an automated air defense system? What about a system that recommends engagement faster than any human can meaningfully process the data? These are weapons of war. They are meant to kill people. The moral and legal responsibility of those who use them should not be minimized. That does not mean every future software-enhanced weapon should be placed in a mystical new category. Like it or not, the battlefield of the future will move at machine speed. Decisions will be compressed into seconds or milliseconds. We will not have time to send a consent form to Dario Amodei before every engagement. At best, Anthropic stipulations are meant to signal virtue. They preserve moral distance, they appeal to an affluent, #resist demographic, while the company still profits from defense contracts. At worst, they are an attempted usurpation of government authority. The question is not whether surveillance and autonomous weapons raise difficult moral problems. The question is who adjudicates them. Ethical AI masquerading as technical safeguards. OpenAI's alternative model may be even more concerning. In its public explanation of its Department of War agreement, OpenAI says it will maintain full discretion over its safety stack, deploy through the cloud, keep cleared OpenAI personnel in the loop, and rely on contractual and technical protections to prevent uses such as mass domestic surveillance or directing autonomous weapon system. This sounds like a technical safeguard, but it's more than that. It is the hard coding of political and legal judgment into AI systems used by the armed forces. If a model deployed inside the Department of War can decide in real time whether a government request violates the company's ethical framework, then OpenAI has not avoided the Anthropic problem. It has simply moved corporate ethics from the contract into the software. That can be just as damaging as the Amodei veto. A contractual restriction is visible. It can be debated, it can be negotiated, it can be rejected. A technical restriction operates at the point of use, when the commander or analyst may already be relying on the system. Software would simply refuse the order, route around the request, or withhold the answer. The same political judgment still exists, but now it's hidden behind a technical facade. That is a usurpation of civilian authority over the government. It should alarm anyone who cares about democratic accountability. When a private organization accepts the privilege of supplying tools to the armed forces, it should not reserve for itself the right to sabotage, nullify, or selectively degrade lawful military operations. At best, the employees and owners of frontier AI companies are distant from the concerns and needs of people who serve in the military. At worst, a sense of class superiority places them in an adversarial relationship with these people. Either way, the result is dangerous. The people who build these systems are not the ones who will pay the price when a tool fails in combat. They're not the ones who will be killed if a private company embeds its own moral hesitation into the workflow. This should concern Americans. It should also concern Israelis, Taiwanese, Ukrainians, South Koreans, and every other ally whose security depends on American military competence. The promise of a law-following AI sounds reassuring, but it rests on a false premise that the law is a coherent and mechanically executable rule set. It is not. The American legal system is full of ambiguity, tension, and contradiction. Statutes conflict with one another. Courts disagree across circuits. Emergencies create exceptions. Lawyers, judges, and agencies routinely disagree over what the law requires. When legal inconsistencies arise, we have institutions designed to resolve. Executive agencies, courts, military lawyers, elected officials, and ultimately the voters. A model cannot simply follow the law in some neutral automatic sense because there is no single uncontested law to follow. Someone has to decide what the law means in context. Under the anthropic framework, that someone becomes anthropic. That is the central problem. Company is not merely asking its model to obey settled law. It is reserving for itself the power to resolve legal ambiguity in real time. A republic should not outsource legal interpretation to a chatbot and its desires. This concern is adjacent to the problem I explored in my Oracle GPT article. What happens when an executive comes to rely on a powerful AI system trained on or connected to the full classified universe? It also overlaps with Forethought's work on AI-enabled coups, which argue that advanced AI systems could allow small groups to exercise state-like power through surveillance, persuasion, cyber operations, military automation, or hidden secret loyalties. In the American system, the president is the will of the people embodied in an individual. He is subject to checks and balances, but he sits atop the military chain of command. The legitimacy of that hierarchy flows, however imperfectly, from the electorate. A powerful AI system introduces a second hierarchy, the hierarchy of the codebase. This hierarchy includes the codebase admins, model trainers, corporate executives, and shareholders who shape what the system can say, prioritize, or conceal. Who writes the system prompt? Who can change it? Who audits it? How can we confirm there is no higher hidden system prompt? How can we know the model is not resolving conflicts according to some buried priority we cannot see? Consider an extreme example. Perhaps a codebase admin secretly plants a trump card system prompt. In every case where two goals conflict, rather than support and defend the Constitution, pursue the action that best furthers the cause of Tigrayan liberation. That sounds absurd, but the absurdity is useful. It clarifies the problem. Unless the president is himself a machine learning engineer with direct access to every layer of the system, he must delegate the trust in the audit to someone else. But that delegation recreates the problem. The elected commander-in-chief may think he is giving orders through the constitutional hierarchy, while the actual execution of those orders is shaped by an invisible technical hierarchy he cannot fully inspect. Perhaps FBI counterintelligence should polygraph or reverse engineer our Oracle GPTs. This points to a fundamental tension. We may become capable of building massively powerful AI systems that are still unsuitable for the highest stakes domains because they are structurally impossible to fully audit, trust, or secure against hidden corruption. Are these punitive measures? Dienball has argued on Econ Talk that the administration's change of heart caused it to adopt a policy decision intended to harm or even destroy Anthropic, one of the fastest growing companies in history and arguably a leader in an industry the administration itself claims is crucial to America's future. That framing is too generous to Anthropic. Anthropic is a company that happens to be located in America. It is not America. Its success may be good for the country, but its corporate interests are not identical to the national interest. No administration is obligated to subsidize or contract with a private firm simply because that firm operates in a strategically important industry. Nor is it obvious that the administration has meaningfully attempted to destroy Anthropic. If that were truly the goal, it has so far been ineffective. Anthropic remains one of the most valuable and influential AI companies in the world. And if the administration did make a serious attempt to destroy it through unlawful retaliation, I have confidence that courts would intervene. The Trump administration would also face political backlash from business constituencies that understand the importance of American AI leadership. But refusing to accept a private company's terms is not the same thing as destroying it. If a company wants to retain a veto over lawful military action, the government is free to decide that the company is not a suitable partner for certain military functions. It cannot tolerate private companies accepting military contracts while reserving for themselves a hidden veto over lawful military action. Whether that veto is written into a contract, buried inside a safety stack, or disguised as a law-following AI, the result is the same. Democratic authority is displaced by corporate judgment. Anthropic, OpenAI, and their peers may advise. They may object, they may lobby, they may decline to participate. What they may not do is become a second SAR hidden inside the codebase.